Hello, my name is Marney Penn, and I'm a tour guide at Eastern State Penitentiary. I want to thank you for joining us again for Prisons and the Pandemic, a discussion about COVID-19 and its effect on the criminal justice system. Here are this week's highlights of the COVID-19 outbreak in our prison system. Attorney General William Barr directed the Bureau of Prisons to prioritize the release of people from federal prisons in Louisiana, Connecticut, and Ohio, which comprised the bulk of the BOP's coronavirus infections. Since Barr issued his orders, the BOP says it has moved 615 individuals to home confinement and is immediately reviewing all prisoners with COVID-19 risk factors to determine if they meet the criteria for early release. Immigration and Custom Enforcement officials, or ICE, have identified 600 detainees for possible release because of their vulnerability to the coronavirus. ICE has reported 32 confirmed cases of COVID-19 among detainees in ICE custody, as well as 11 confirmed cases among employees working in ICE detention centers. In California, prisons are experiencing dramatic increases in confirmed cases of coronavirus. On Wednesday, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation stated that the number of Californians with coronavirus had increased more than 7 times in about a 1-week period. Additionally, the number of CDCR staff that have contracted the virus has tripled during the same period. CDCR Secretary Ralph Diaz told CNN there would be significant modifications to the daily operations of California prisons over the next 2 weeks, including social distancing and intense disinfecting. Pennsylvania Correctional Industries began producing personal protective equipment for staff and incarcerated people in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 throughout the state's prisons. The incarcerated workforce operates in 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, to manufacture cloth masks, antibacterial soap, gowns, and disinfectant. Secretary of Correction John Wenzel stated, "We didn't want to take from the community supply, so we began making the mask in-house at several of our state prisons." On Friday, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signed an executive order authorizing temporary reprieve for some incarcerated Pennsylvanians. The executive order could release up to 1,800 incarcerated people. The order is similar to what other states have implemented. To be eligible, a person must have a nonviolent conviction and less than 9 months of their sentence remaining, or be considered especially at risk with less than 1 year of their sentence remaining. When the current disaster emergency is lifted, this temporary executive order will expire. At that point, people who were released through the executive order will return to prison to serve out the remainder of their sentence. Although the executive order could impact 1,800 people, the governor's office cautioned that challenges to reentry, such as food and housing insecurities and inadequate health care, will decrease the number of people actually released. The Small Business Administration adds a new interim rule on business owners seeking financial relief. The SBA's interim rule included the Paycheck Protection Program, which is part of the $2 trillion economic relief package known as the CARES Act. The new rule restricts small business owners who've had a felony conviction in the last 5 years for applying for loan programs included in the relief package. The Marshall Project has pointed out that a closer look at the application for the Paycheck Protection Program actually disqualifies even more people by asking if the applicant has pleaded no contest, been placed in a diversionary program, or spent time on probation or parole in a felony case within the past 5 years. In response to the restrictions, a growing list of advocacy groups have called on Congress to remove barriers on arrest or conviction history. They argue that the interim rule is more exclusionary than normal SBA regulations and that qualifications for economic relief during this time should be more relaxed and not heightened. So, my question is, should incarcerated people be released to home confinement to reduce the risk of COVID-19 in prisons? And is the threat of the pandemic going to negatively affect these incarcerated people once back in their communities? That concludes today's discussion of prisons and the pandemic. My name again is Marney Penn, and we at Eastern State Penitentiary wish you well during this difficult time. We look forward to your questions and comments on our website and other social media platforms. Thank you for joining us.